Hey, do you like to read business books? Well, this week's book is The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. Now, ever since he became our president, I'd wanted to read the book and I never did. Well, now that he's making a run for office again in 2024, motivated me to dig into his book in hopes that I could better understand him as a person. Now, I already know this review is going to make half the country happy and piss the other half off. But this review is not, or at least I'm going to try my best not to make it a political statement and just focus on the content of the book itself. That being said, I give this book 1 out of 5 head tilts from Macy. To be fair, that may not be a fair score because I went into the book thinking it was a business book on the Trump philosophy for closing a sale. It wasn't. It was just an autobiography about him and his many successful deals, his remarkable deals, his stupendous deals. Now, if I had gone in expecting an autobiography, I probably still would have given it 1 out of 5 head tilts. As autobiographies go, it is the second worst one that I've ever read. After I read about somebody's life, I want to have a better insight as to who that person is. I want an understanding of their complexities and maybe even a concept about their beliefs and their lessons from the biggest mistakes they've made in their life. This book provided very little of that. It's just a chronological description of what he's done in business and what small insights it does provide into his business strategies. I think it could really steer a lot of young entrepreneurs the wrong way, especially if they idolize the guy. And I get that a lot of people do. But honestly, his business advice isn't sound. I can sum it up in basically a few sentences. You're either born with the gift of entrepreneurship or you're not. Like some people have it, some people don't. You should trust your gut when making deals. And if somebody hits you, hit them back 10 times harder. That's about it. And out of those 3, I think the worst advice you could ever give an entrepreneur is to rely on your gut instincts. And his book actually, by the way, proves that that's a bad idea because he's constantly bragging about his natural-born talent and his gut instincts on deals. At the time, they seemed good, but they turned out to be a disaster. And even the ones, by the way, that were a failure, his hindsight bias is so strong, he can't even see his own failures as failures. I'll give you a case in point. He's bragging in the book about what a great deal he made investing into the USFL to compete with the NFL. The USFL shut down. It didn't go anywhere. And even when Trump sued the NFL for unfair business practice and won, the jury only gave them $1 in damages. That's not a win. The book, frankly, hasn't aged well because he brags so hard about what great deals he's made, but 20 years later, or whatever it is, a lot of what he brags about in the book turned out to be a bad deal. Look, gut instinct does play a part in business, but it should never be, in my opinion, the sole source of your decisions. Trust your gut is a common maxim shouted by a lot of entrepreneurs, not just Trump. But when you dig into the numbers, most people didn't succeed because of their gut. They succeeded in spite of their gut. You know what can increase your chances for success in business? Good data. And then knowing how to interpret that data. Now, I know I'll probably get a lot of pushback and hater comments for it, but success bias is real. And most people, me included, tend to forget the failures that we've had, and they generalize on all of their successes. Me too. It's what keeps us going, I guess. So in that case, I guess it's maybe a good thing, but trusting your gut is a high-risk move. Trusting data is much more intelligent and overall a much more predictable and safe path to take. If you've read the book, feel free to let me know what you think about it in the comments. Maybe my bias kept me from seeing the genius in the book. I'm open to be wrong. If you did like it, leave some of your favorite quotes as well so we can all benefit. And if you'd like to be notified the next time I create a book review, well, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell to get your alerts. I'll be releasing some future reviews on The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. By the way, his company was one of the most profitable privately owned companies in the world. For example, his company had about $100,000 in equity in 1983, and in just 8 years grew that to $20 million. Needless to say, I like the book. I'll be reviewing Clear Thinking by Shane Parrish, and the list just keeps growing. Which, by the way, if you have a book that you would like me to review, don't be shy. Leave it in the comments, and I just might actually review that book in the near future. Until then, let's all try a little harder to be a little better. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch that book review. If you liked it, I think you might like this one as well. Check it out.